Hello, fellow creators. I'm doing a little bit of Reddit help tonight. I just wanted to walk you through two options on creating halftones. So, what this person is looking at doing is creating some halftone shapes. I like to use one of two methods, either a gradient in a box or a gradient mesh. You're going to need to be working in CMYK mode to get the best results. You can work in RGB, but when you're translating it to try to take it apart, if you're just using it for effect, you could stay in RGB or CMYK. But if you're going to be taking it apart for screen printing or anything else, you will have to be working in CMYK mode in order for it to come out the best. So, option number one, you're going to want your appearance palette and your transparency palette out. Now, this is working without any plugins, just native to Illustrator. So the first thing I'm going to do is get out my gradient mesh tool. I'm going to put a couple lines here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the gradient mesh on how I want to create this. So I'm selecting with the direct select tool those three objects, and the color palette I'm making sure I'm doing 100% K. So what this will do is it'll give me a soft gradient going all the way to the edge here, going all the way to the edge here. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this out so I get a little bit less of a bend right about there. And then what I can do is if I really want these to be softer, I can just pull those out. So now I got a corner gradient. What this corner gradient will be great for is if you want to change the angle of it, you can easily come in and manipulate it, and it's a little bit easier to rotate around and to get the right angle that you want, because we're going to be using this as a mask. So after I did that, I'm going to come over here to the effects palette. This way it's not damaging, and I can actually undo what I did. So what I'm going to do is come in here and have that selected. I'm going to go effects. Then we're going to go over pixelate and color halftone. Now, depending on what angle you're going to have it at, you're going to want to change channel 4, which will be black, to the rotation of 30 degrees. You never want it perfectly straight up and down, or else then you get what's called an effect of moire lines, and you'll get like swirls in your artwork. 8 pixels, because I'm marking at around standard screen size, should be good in the size, and I'm going to go ahead and apply. As you see, now it created a black and white color halftone. Now it is color, so if I come in here and let's say change this to yellow, you'll see that it will put the yellow halftone back in. So you're going to want to make sure that it stays black and white and that you're only using the black layer. Now, if you want the color effect to where you want rainbow of colors in here, you can bring these back in and use those colors. But again, like I said, what we're going to use this for, we're going to want to leave those black and white. Now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create our solid color, the color that we want the gradient to be. So I'm going to create my object, and I want this, let's say, to be purplish blue. We'll go really dark so that way it's nice and dark on the screen. I'm going to send it to the back. Now, the only thing I want to show are the dots. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this over. I'm going to hit copy. I'm going to select our color. Then we're going to make a mask. We're going to switch over to the mask and Control V. Now, one thing that did mess up, it's in revert. So we're seeing the purple where white was, and where black was, it's knocked out. Simple fix, we hit invert color here. And now we can switch back to our purple, and now we have a gradient halftone inside our artwork. And in the end, when you want to export this for a print, let's say you're making a screen print, all you're going to do is unlink, and you're going to copy out your gradient, and in where the purple is, we're just going to delete that layer and Control V or Control F if you want to have it in place. Now, if you wanted to edit that, let's say you wanted to come in here and update your gradient because you want a different shape to it, you can live update it. It is not locked down. It is not permanent. And if you have other shapes, let's say you want to do something else with this, you can. You're, like I said, you're not locked down. And what in fact you can do is with this gradient halftone selected in the artboard here, if we pull out our graphic styles, we can apply that. And if you see here, it applied it to the object. If I come in here, because I'm inside my mask, and I didn't want a square, I want a circle. And I wanted a circle with a radial gradient, right? Now, normally that would be just a solid. I wanted to reverse the color. So the inner would be black. Now all I have to do is, the easiest way to do it would be just apply pixelation, color halftone, make sure it's 8 and 30, and there it is. That will give me a pixelated object, which I can tell you right now, the center of the halftone was not 100% black, which you can reset that out, and now you have a separate halftone. But keep in mind, anytime you do this way, you're locked into Illustrator's default halftone. Like I said, though, it helps you out a lot to where I can copy this, paste in front. Oh, I want to be outside the... Why did I do it? Did not copy it. Copy. Go back out. Paste in front. Weird. Copy. Switch out. There we go. Paste in front. So I can have that, like I said, for print. It, like I said, again, it's complicated and it creates issues if you try to do other things with it. But this is how I natively used to do halftones. If I was doing anything for screen print, I would sit and create a gradient mesh and then apply the effect I need to it, and then I could just print straight from the file here. If you also want, what you can do is duplicate this and then go to Object and then Flatten Transparency. And then it's a raster image. And then go Object, direct select it, and then come over here to Image Trace. And why is it showing it here? If you go to black and white and then drop down your menu here, you can hit advanced and you want all of your curves, zero noise, and then you get your halftones back, and then you can expand that. So then you can actually have the dots, but they aren't going to be perfect dots. They're going to be all jagged and funny. Unlike this way, you're limited to your effects under your document raster settings. You can bring this size up and it will update the quality of your dots. So as you saw there, I updated my quality. I got a much better quality on my dots. If I come in here to this and adjust my gradient here, you can see that it adjusts how much the halftones are out and in, and you can manipulate how that's going to be. You can actually use gradient dots too. It's not limiting you. You just want to make sure you stick to black and white only, or else then you get the color gradient, which is using the CMYK values. If you go to RGB, you just get RGB values, which then you tend to get grays. And when you get the grays, you get RGB color gradients. And also you are limited only to dots. And like I said, this is not permanent. So I can come in here, instead of being 17 pixels, I can go back to 8 pixels and get a much more detailed dot matrix out of that. So that's the first way. The second way would be similarly to the color halftone in this, which would be requiring a plugin. I can come in here and go effects, Phantasm, which is by Astute Graphics, and then Halftones. This one is similar, but I have a much greater detail. And so these are dots per inch, which are similar to pixels, but they're how many individual dots per inch you're going to have. So it's a grid, it's a mathematical grid. But rather than pixels, you're talking about like a hole or a fabric line. Normally, this is going to be like 15 or 23, and then my angle would be 30. I always try to keep the angle at a very odd number, so that way, if I print this out and I put it on a screen, I'm not going to get moire lines. But this one, unlike the other one, these are vector dots. And if I were to reduce my image quality here, instead of 23, if I reduce it down, let's just stay to 8, just so that way we can see these better. And I'm going to duplicate this so I can show you that. Go Object, Expand, or Flatten Transparency. As you see, it actually printed out individual dots, which can get very heavy and very complex. But there's a quick way and quick and dirty way to make halftones and get things a little bit laid out for if you're doing for screen printing. Have fun, stay creative.